I want to discuss about the Matrix movies and the Matrix you and I experience being a human being on this world. This video is going to go deep into the Matrix movies. So if you have not watched all the Matrix movies, probably several times, you are not going to know what I'm talking about, right? But you can still participate in this discovery with me. But it's going to be more beneficial if you have watched the Matrix movies, okay? So that you can understand what I'm talking about when I refer to these particular concepts within the Matrix movies and how it is connected to concepts we experience in our human life on this world. So first thing I want to share about the Matrix movies is life force. There is the whole Matrix, the first movie to the last movie, it's a story of the life force and how powerful the life force is. Okay, so in the Matrix, when the main character wakes up from I like to call the kind of computer, being kind of caught in this computer world, right? Where this illusion, nothing is real, waking up to realizing, wait a minute, we're not actually the ones who are leading our planet. It is the robots, right? The wake up, realizing everything has become robotic, right? And human beings have basically no leadership. They've given all of their power to robots, right? To the artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence now is creating human beings, biological organism, to basically take the life force and use it to support their robots, right? Because you need energy. You need energy, right? And human beings possess a lot of energy, right? So there's this scene where you see when the main character wakes up from, I like to see, from being caught in a computer, right? Where a lot of us we can say in our in our human experience right now with this technology age, a lot of us are kind of caught in the computer, right? Caught in the computer screen, caught in the Instagram, caught in the phones, right? So that really represents we are out of our embodiment, we're out of our physical body, we're like caught in our head playing out these fantasies. Because the main character, when he wakes up and he's in this giant manufactured womb where every 7+ billion people are in these cocoons, and they're in these cocoons their whole life. They're basically created in these cocoons, they die in these cocoons, and all these billions of cocoons, they're full of light, right? Because each body is giving off energy, which is giving off light. And that energy, all these cocoons are plugged up to, I guess, the robots, right? And the robots are basically sucking out life force through these cocoons, right, that are plugged into the robots, the mother robot, right, the mother consciousness that is basically a robot, right? And the mother consciousness to all the robots is sucking out the life force of each 7+ billion people and using it to keep the robots going, right? Because you need energy and human beings have a lot of it, right? So the great wake-up call that the great sort of enlightenment, we'll say, for the main character has to do with life force, right? And how the life force is our way of, we can say, bending time and space. So the main character would go back into I like to say the computer world, right? Where people are playing out all their fantasies that they like. Either their fantasy is to be rich, or their fantasy is to, have good sex, or their fantasy is this, that, and the other. Whatever it is, they're presented with these illusions, like, they play out their life, not even being connected to the physical body, because it's, trapped in the cocoon, right? They're not embodied. They're just kind of in their head, almost like, right? Almost like watching a TV show of their life, for their whole life, right? But not actually living, not actually using the life force of their physical body, right? So it is, when we look at our current society, in many ways, we do kind of go into that sort of la la land, right? That TV world where we're just like, we just zoom, our mind is just caught into that, right? Into that computer world, that sort of TV world, right? And a lot of us, in many ways, spend not as much time outdoors, getting in touch with our physical life force, right? So when the main character, became enlightened, we'll say, to the fact that the real world is being ruled by robots, right? And being ruled by basically the intellect, right? And that's very interesting, being ruled by the intellect. Because when the main character wakes up and all human beings are living in caves, which is very interesting, living in caves. So they've been pushed out and they've been pushed into caves, right? Which we have seen that in history, where people are pushed out and pushed into caves. And basically what's leading the world is just the intellect. And when you go to the surface of the world, basically it's stripped of everything. It seems a very barren planet that doesn't have any life, right? Because there's no need for life. The artificial intelligence doesn't need oxygen, right? It doesn't need to breathe. It's not physical, right? So when you're not physical, you don't need grass, you don't need trees, you don't need sunlight, right? So all of that is completely destroyed, right? The artificial intelligence, the AI, right, basically, said, well, we don't really need trees, we don't need oceans, let's just destroy it, right? It doesn't matter if there's a bunch of clouds that's covering the whole atmosphere of this planet, no sun's getting in, because we don't need it, right? We are robots. We don't need to have the experience of nature to keep going, right? All we need is energy. And as long as we have our energy supply, we're good. So they get their energy supply, since, the sun is gone because of the clouds, so they can't get energy from the sun, is they get energy from the sun, which is human beings, right? And human beings, they possessed a life force that is very much as powerful as a sun, right? So that's why the AI and the robots are able to survive, is through the taking of the life force to build up their world, right? So, and in the computer world, the sort of TV world, the sort of fantasy world, the illusionary world, people are so out of touch with their life force, you could say so desensitized, that they don't even realize that they're disconnected from their physical body. They don't even realize that they're disconnected from their physical body, right? Because they've gotten so wrapped up into the computer world, TV world, they don't even realize, wait a minute, I'm not connected to my body. Wait a minute, I am not connected to my life force. Because right when the main character started to have an interest, right, a curiosity for life force, right, the common curiosity we all have is my life force, right? Maybe there's more to life. Maybe there is more to life. Maybe there's more to my energy than what I'm being told, right, by the society. So the main character would have interactions with, you could say, the Oracle and other individuals who also are discovering their life force, and he would learn about the life force in the intuitive, instinctual nature, the creative, the very powerful creative energy that is within the life force, right? So when he started to uncover the life force, that's when he started to use his own energy within himself, right? Instead of giving his power away or letting whatever programs or illusions take his power away from him, he started to build up the power within himself, right? Through working with his creative thought, working with his, working with the idea of having energy that is expansive, an energy that is so creative, an energy that is so empowered. So when you start to do that, that's when the main character, both in the computer world, I'll say, and also in the physical world, the reality world, was able to, I would say, the electromagnetic field, he was able to alter the electromagnetic field, right? And that's what we call about the glitch, right? He would basically create glitches within the computer world, and then he would create glitches within the real world, which again was ruled basically by robots. So the electromagnetic field is something that all oracles and sages and shamans develop. The electromagnetic field, it very much creates a glitch. It creates a sort of portal, right? And that portal is able to channel through higher energy, cosmic energy. Like in a scene where the main character went above the dense cloud, right, due to destruction, right, and would see the sun, there was this great revelation when you're sort of basking in the sun to a world when there's no sun because the clouds are so thick, and you have this great realization that, wow, the sun, this is like the ultimate life force, this is like the ultimate creative expression, right? And this main character has been stripped of that, has been totally stripped of the ultimate life force, the ultimate creative energy, right? So in that kind of connection is I can actually connect to even greater energy within myself, even greater empowerment in myself, just energize the life force even more, right? So in taking back the life force was like unplugging from putting my life force, giving my power away to these illusions, these fantasies that are put in place in order so that I can support the agenda, the agenda of the AI, or the agenda of the intellect, the ego, the intellect that doesn't serve the human soul, or doesn't serve the soul of the planet. Because if it served the soul of the planet would have life. The planet would not be barren, and it would just look like a bunch of rock, and there's no trees, and there's no grass, and there's no rivers, there's no ocean, right? So it's like unplugging, from the computer, unplugging from the TV is a way of, I'm taking back my power, and I'm going to plug it into the earth. I'm going to plug it into what has life. What has life? The sun. When the main character is basking in the sun, when he, flies above the thick cloud, basically pollution and toxin and stuff, and he basks in the sun, and there was this moment of just completely being replenished and completely being healed, and having that revelation that this is what reality is. And I have been so disconnected from reality, and so wrapped up, so plugged into the intellect, the ego, that really doesn't even want to spend time with the sun, doesn't see the relevance of it, right? That going back into the world with that sort of solar activation, we'll say, right? The main character was definitely a solar activation, that was able to, we could say, bend time and space was simply about having the energy, like fuel to a rocket, right? Having the energy to be able to electromagnetically create these glitches, or these sort of create this fluctuation, or this pulsation within the matrix that would kind of create a portal, create an opening in time and space, and in timelines and agendas, for things to be reconstructed. And that's what we are doing in many ways as human beings with this patriarchal age, where, you know, we're plugged into this particular history, this particular timeline that is just it's basically could say we're computerized in this solely patriarchal lens of our history and of human beings, and of white people, black people, Asian people, right? And when we build up our life force, as we start to become more grounded, more tribal, even shamanistic in nature, which, you know, many human beings can possess, right? Where you start to have this solar activation, you start to connect with the moon, connect with nature, connect with reality, which is physical life force, which is an embodiment, which is this, you know, the nourishing of the human soul. Not the intellect is so wrapped up into, you know, this reptilian brain, where we have no sort of connection to creativity, right? Because in the Matrix, the Oracle in many ways was a timekeeper, right? Not only a timekeeper of the past, present, and the future possibilities, but also was in many ways a shaman that could read into the energies, sort of prophesize the energies, and could tap into the evolution of somebody, right? And the evolution of this whole paradigm, and how it's going to collapse, and there's going to be a new paradigm, right? So in many ways, you know, we can slumber, right, where we think we're using our life force, but we don't really realize that our life force is sleeping, right, is very atrophied or dormant, until we basically meet the sun, right, and bask in the sun, and have that solar activation, and then kind of look around and start to see, wait a minute, there's a deeper energy I can possess. And that's why, you know, people who are having these solar activations within their life are drawn to, like, Kundalini yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, are drawn to different sort of, like, you know, dances that are tribal in nature, that belong to, you know, indigenous people, who are very grounded in what it means to be creative and to grow things, right, to cultivate the land. And when people participate in these things, what they're doing is they're activating their creative energy, which is how the main character is able to break down the hold that's on him, that the hold that's on him, right, which is the kind of, you are to be this, you are to be that, right, which doesn't, that's not creativity. Creativity is choice, it's opportunity, it's possibility, right? But when you this, you that, there's no possibility, there's no opportunity, right? So he, you know, the reason he was seen as, I guess, the main character was seen as the great messiah, we'll say, of of the Matrix, right, is because he possessed such this creative lifeline to the sun and to the moon, even though that was completely gone. He had such he was plugged in so much to that tribal understanding, either, you know, it's shown in the movie or not, but plugged in so much to that tribal understanding, that kind of shamanistic connection to the moon and the sun, that he was able to make a creative choice, which is very difficult. It's actually very difficult to change. We, you know, talk about, you know, healing generational, you know, curses and ancestral trauma. Like, that's basically what he was doing. He was trying to make a creative choice to end the destruction of the human, the human race, to end the extinction of the human race, to end the sort of to repair the human intellect, to repair the human ego, right? To provide a portal, an opportunity for those who have the will, or who have the interest, where they too can connect with their solar activation. They too can connect with a real sun, right? And this brings me back to the Lorax, where the Lorax by Dr. Seuss was basically, artificial trees, and the Thenide, I think it's called the Thenide village, the Thenide city, and basically, outside the border of the Thenide city, there was no trees. All the trees been cut down to basically create the Thenides. And then once the Thenides, people got bored of them, then there was no trees left. And basically, people did not know how to grow their own food. They were eating food that just would pop out of like a microwave, right? They had no connection to vegetables and fruit. It was like every tree was fake, and it was just like a cement jungle, right? And very similar, we see that kind of same image within the sort of computer world of the Matrix, where, you get out of the Matrix and people have no idea how to grow, right? Grow food, like grow trees, like the cycles and rhythms and phases of life. They're so out of sync. They're living in caves, not even realizing that, are they even in touch with the rhythms and cycles and phases of the moon and the sun? They can't even see the sun. They're deep in caves, right? So there's a kind of disadvantage human beings have when they don't have connection to astrology, which is to be able to see the stars and to, see the moon and the sun and have a connection to that and have a ceremony with that, right? There's a disadvantage when humans are not connected to nature. And I think the whole movie in many ways is about humans disconnected from nature and really caught in this battle. I see the battle between the intellect and the soul, right? The ego and the soul, right? The intellect is just about, that reptilian brain. It's just about the survival of one's agenda, right? The robots, right? And their world, right? And being so stubborn and resistant, it's my way, the highway type of thing. And then the battle with the soul is about the sun, the soul is about the moon, and about the rhythms, cycles, and phases of life. And how when human beings are connected to that, human beings are not just in little cocoons, their life force being sucked out of them, right? They're able to to create their own world. So that was taken from them, because, when human beings have connection to the moon and sun, they begin to have a knowledge on how to create worlds, right? And this is, if we're, going to, the Anunnaki taught the early civilizations in this kind of, we think of our history textbook, like the Mesopotamian, Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, and many other sort of in this time period, civilizations that had, science and math and sort of a functional, civilization that is very much similar to what we have today. The Anunnaki taught them about how to create worlds, right? In the story of these sort of, early civilizations, there's these star beings, right, that would teach them about how to create worlds, right? They were seen as the great oracle, right, of the stars, basically. So, when human beings don't have access to the stars, the moon, the sun, because they're so wrapped up in whatever, ego or intellect, where they're disconnected from their body and they don't even feel their body, right? They don't even have awareness of their body. They're disembodied. What happens is they lose the ability to create world, to create change, to create a movement within themselves, to create glitches, right, in the matrix, or to use their own electromagnetic field to basically, like this, the earth and the moon and the sun, the solar system, all electromagnetic magnetism happening, right? That's why we have equilibrium. If we didn't have that electromagnetic magnetism, we would not be alive, right? The moon was installed in our orbit for a reason, because the moon is to help the magnetic field of Earth from spinning too fast or spinning too slow, from the oceans being too hot or too cold, or the earth in general being too fiery. So it gives that equilibrium. The sun heats everything up, the moon cools everything down. So, without that magnetism going on, we wouldn't have possibly human beings, maybe life in oceans and some forms of animal, but not us, right? So that is the kind of the enlightenment the main character has when it comes to the computer world, and people are just playing out these programs that have been given to them just to keep them numb, right? So that when they are no longer numb, they can kind of feel into their embodiment, feel into their creativity, and start to, we call, wake up, which is basically about their waking up to their heart. They're no longer like, oh, let me just be in this intellect and just hassle and hustle and try to get what I think I need to get and drain all my energy in the process, right? They start that creative energy start to feel into your life. And that's how you really develop that kind of shaman view, that we call that interstellar consciousness, right? Which is able to connect with the sun, the moon of this system and possible other systems, right? To gather your own solar activation, your own sun, right? To your own planet that is you. And the planet that is you, just like every planet or solar system, has a magnetic field. And that magnetic field can actually pull and can pull, magnetize, and can also repel and demagnetize. And that's the kind of why we have this functional solar system, because of that kind of natural law of attraction, which is the magnetism and demagnetism, the pull and the repelling. So this main character was able to he was able to magnetize these opportunities for him to shift gears. We'll talk about shift gears of the computer world in order to move energy the way that would provide him the best sort of position, right? And that's very much what, we talk about the shamans do, but the reason shamans have that ability is because they're connected to the earth. They're connected to the heart. They're connected with the rhythms, cycles, and phases of time, either as a timekeeper, an astrologer, either as a space holder, as a healer. I mean, there's all these type of words, but ultimately, just like the main character, you are embodying what is natural for all life, which is to be in your life force, to be connected to one's creativity, to know how creativity works, not just to be in a cocoon, being your life force being sucked out of you for somebody else's whatever they want to do, right? And that's the kind of you cutting the cord, right? Is in many ways, or cutting the cord, or detaching, or from whatever you're plugged into, that you start to build up your own sun, right? Build up your own sun to the own sort of the world that you can create within yourself, your own world, right? And that's a kind of interstellar consciousness. That's a kind of fifth dimension. That's the kind of, without Anunnaki belonging to the fifth dimension, we're teaching human beings that, each of you has the power of the sun, the moon, and beyond just this, system, even beyond the Milky Way. And you can connect to all of that, and you can gather knowledge and wisdom that can teach you how to basically unlock rooms within this earth grid, right? Unlock portals within this earth grid, unlock doorways within this earth grid, right? And to appear and then to disappear and to reappear, right? Like we see in UFOs that all of a sudden they appear and then they disappear and then they reappear in this kind of dance in the sky, right? And that's similar to the main character kind of reappearing and then disappearing and then appearing, and these kind of, sort of bending of time and space. It's the connection to the connection to one's own creative energy and one's ability to maneuver through these different rooms, these different, you could say, these different grid points, these different information centers that one has within the body, and or one's own consciousness, to invite in one's own miracle, is what I would like to say, one's own miracle, because everything that seemed miraculous, what was the main character doing, it was seeming like a miracle. And that's really what all of these beings of earth, when we think of Jesus and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Black Madonna, and all, Archangel Michael and Saint Germain, like all of these individuals were just teaching miracle. They're teaching the science component of it, like Nikola Tesla, the miracle of light, right? Light bulb, and the sort of, the light and the circuits of light. And then, Pablo Picasso's teaching like the miracle of expression, right? Or Einstein, the miracle of relativity, right? There's all these are miracles where, in many ways, the sort of shaman perspective, they're sharing a shaman perspective even with Steve Jobs and the iPhone, which is an ability to have creativity that's not bound to this earth, that is plugged into not programs of whatever beliefs of this earth, but are programmed into a more cosmic, solar, lunar type of download. So that's why Einstein, Da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, they were able to break through the limitations, the glass ceiling, right? The sound barrier in many ways, and nobody probably believed in them, what they were doing, and thought they were crazy or like way over the top, like lunatics, but they kept going because they understood that the creative momentum, which in the Matrix the main character was building, the creative momentum is one thing, there's a thing that it's not belong to this world. It's not bound to whatever this world wants you to be. It's very much accessing the energy that governs this world, the principles, the laws actually created Earth, the sun, the moon, and the system. And when you access that kind of creative lifeline of how these things came into being, of the simplest organisms to the more complex organisms, that's when you start to bring into your embodiment this sort of tribal channel of movement. Right? We're talking about movement through doorways, movement through rooms within this big house, of all these rooms that you can stay in, and you can stay there, and then you can move. You can wake up and you can sleep in one room, and then you can sleep in another room, and you get to choose what room gives me the most energy. And really, I don't want to stay in any room. I want to keep moving. And that's the thing. You don't want to stay in any room. You want to keep moving, because movement is a sign of health, right? So, in the movement, kind of similar to like the OA, if you've seen, the Netflix series The OA, very similar to the Matrix, if you're following this stream of thought. The OA also had these rooms where each room gave you a mystic teaching, right? Overcoming fear, going through the wasteland of people who are desperate and in lust and these type of things, going through all these different rooms. And the movement, basically, the sort of freedom that you gain when you go to the rose window, in the very, and you look out the rose window, is you get to see the unlocking of the mind. You get to see other dimensions, other worlds. You get to see into yourself and the creative momentum of yourself, and how you can basically retrieve that you can merge that with who you are, and you can start to really tap into your ability to navigate through the many kind of webbings of this earth, in the kind of echo. In the OA, they talk about the echo, which is the web, and how everything is, we're kind of webbed into all of these different components of life, and how the echo and the breaking of the echo, the silencing of the echo, has everything to do with the kind of ripples that we make with our decisions, with our movement. When we create movement, especially movement of life force, we create like a tidal wave, and that is very much like an echo, and you can change the echo, and the echo does change as you begin to move and you begin to decide new movement. And that's the creative choice. You decide new movement, and you decide new movement continuously for forever. And that's the thing about the intellect with the robots. They don't have new movement. In the Matrix, in the real world, the robots are just doing the same thing again and again. They're just sitting around, I don't know what they're doing, just doing robotic things, right? There's no life, there's no new movement, there's no real evolution, except just more technology and more destruction to earth, right? But there really is no creative movement. There really is no art, culture. I mean, people are just in caves. There's no art, there's no culture, there's not real music. It's very limited. So the movement, the echo, the tidal wave breaks us through different rooms and different connections and different even family ties and family groups, and how we travel as a soul into these different family groups and different geographic locations, different vortexes on this planet, from like third world countries to to countries that are already in future timelines of the Aquarian age, right? Is through your ability to move and to know how to move, and the way we know how to move is through the creative choice and building that up within us, and then sort of being on fire with that in many ways, because that sun gives life. So when you are that sun in your solar activation, lunar activation, that gives life to your world. You need a sun, you need a moon for your own world to be able to move through time and space and magnetize and demagnetize programs and whatever you think is in your way. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Again, this may not make sense for you if you've not watched the Matrix movies, and if I talked about the OA as well, so that could be something beneficial to watch too, especially the episode about the medium, episode titled "The Medium and the Engineer." That episode you should watch to get a deeper understanding on the house, which is like the Matrix, in the house of rooms that you can get locked into and spend your whole life just sitting in there sleeping, right? So I hope that this is beneficial on giving you a sort of a deeper understanding of the Matrix movies and how we can sort of apply the discoveries found in the Matrix movies to our life when it comes to the intellect, which is moving more towards AI and robots, and the reptilian brain, which will become more destructive for the earth, right? Meaning, less consideration for environment, right? And also the discovery of the human heart, right? The real life force of this planet for human beings is the human heart, and the connection to the human culture, the heartfelt culture, the artistic culture, the artistry of the heart, the song of the heart, the rhythm and cycles and phases of the heart, the love, the emotionality, the spirituality of the heart, and how that gives us a tribal sort of shamanistic portal through dimensions and through to gather more cosmic knowledge, which is what the AI, the robots, the intellect doesn't necessarily want us to have. Because when we have understanding of astrology and cosmic laws, then we are understanding, like the Anunnaki, these giant beings from another planet that also was dying or is dying, who knows what time this is, and how to create new worlds, right? And the elements, what do you need to create new worlds? What do you need? We know as human beings we need oxygen. We know as human beings we need gravity, right? But what do you need to create your, your world, which is your vision, your creativity? What do you need, right? And that's why we connect to these cosmic energies, so we can learn, okay, I need these type of energies, I need these type of movements within my life to make it happen, right? So I'll leave you guys with this.